everybody. Welcome to Search the Scriptures today. We are on study number 3 in 2 Samuel, and this covers 2 Samuel chapter 4 all the way through chapter 5 and verse number 16. And we're going to look for the answers to 3 different questions here. Number 1, in what respects was the crime of Rechab and Baanah worse than that of the Amalekite who had killed Saul? And secondly, David waited for 7 years for the decision, at the beginning of chapter number 5. Why did the Israelites now choose him as their king? And 3, how did David succeed in taking the stronghold of Zion, and why? And now let's look at 2 Samuel chapter number 4 through chapter number 5 and verse number 16 together. When Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, heard that Abner had died in Hebron, he lost courage, and all Israel became alarmed. Now Saul's son had 2 men who were leaders of raiding bands. One was named Baanah and the other Rechab. And they were sons of Rimmon the Beerothite from the tribe of Benjamin. Beeroth is considered a part of Benjamin, because the people of Beeroth fled to Gittaim and had resided there as foreigners to this day. Jonathan, son of Saul, had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she hurried to leave, he fell and became disabled, and his name was Mephibosheth. Now Rechab and Baanah, the son of Rimmon the Beerothite, set out for the house of Ishbosheth. And they arrived there in the heat of the day, and while he was taking his noonday rest, they went into the inner part of the house as if to get some wheat. And they stabbed him in the stomach. Then Rechab and his brother Baanah slipped away. They had gone into the house while he was lying on the bed in his bedroom, and after they stabbed and killed him, they cut off his head, taking it with them. They traveled all night by way of Arabah, and they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David at Hebron, and said to the king, "Here is the head of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, your enemy who tried to kill you. This day the Lord has avenged the Lord the king against Saul and his offspring." David answered Rechab and his brother Baanah, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, "As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, when someone told me Saul is dead and thought he was bringing good news, I seized him and put him to death in Ziklag. That was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wicked men have killed an innocent man in his own house and on his own bed, should I not now demand his blood from your hand and rid the earth of you?" So David gave an order to his men, and they killed them. They cut off their hands and feet and hung the bodies by the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and they buried it in Abner's tomb at Hebron. 2 Samuel chapter 5. And all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel in their military campaigns. And the Lord said to you, 'You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler.'" And all the elders of Israel had come to David at Hebron. The king made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. And David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. The king and his men marched to Jerusalem to attack the Jebusites who lived there, and the Jebusites said to David, "You will not get in here. Even the blind and the lame can ward you off." They thought David could not get in here. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David. And on that day, David has said, "Anyone who conquers the Jebusites will have to use the water shaft to reach those lame and blind who are David's enemies." That's why they say the blind and lame will not enter the palace. David then took up residence in the fortress and called it the city of David, and he built up the area around it from the terraces inward, and he became more and more powerful because the Lord God Almighty was with him. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent envoys to David along with cedar logs and carpenters and stonemasons, and they built a palace for David. Then David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel and had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. And after he left Hebron, David took more concubines and wives in Jerusalem, and more sons and daughters were born to him. These are the names of the children born to him there: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphalet. Now to the questions for study 3. In what respects was the crime of Rechab and Baanah worse than that of the Amalekite. Well, the Amalekite that killed Saul was actually putting Saul out of his misery, and he did so at the request of the king who had fallen on his own sword on the hill of Gilboa. But Rechab and Baanah committed outright murder. Second question, David waited for 7 years for the decision at the beginning of chapter 5 to become king over all of Israel. Remember, he was reigning from Hebron in Judah for 6.5 years or 7 years. Why did the Israelites now choose him as king? Well, Israel chooses David as their king at this point because there was nobody else really that was being promoted by anyone. The people had always loved David, and they'd always sang praises to him since his encounter with Goliath. He'd long been preferred over King Saul. But now that the leadership of Israel had become a vacuum, it was obvious that David was the man to step in and to fill that vacuum. Question 3, how did David succeed in taking the stronghold of Zion, and why did he do it? Well, David entered Jerusalem by a water shaft that supplied water to the city in the times of siege. He chose this city because it bordered both Judah and Benjamin. It wasn't controlled by either. It was a perfect city to choose in order to bring a unity to a divided nation. I think it was beneficial at the end of the Civil War that Washington, D.C. was located in a point between north and between south and was able to serve the same kind of purpose, a unifying purpose between two different peoples. And that's what the city of the Jebusites, the city of Jerusalem, did for King David. I hope this study in the Word today has been a blessing to you. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. May God richly bless the rest of your day.